So,
Ten, nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Sport Karate Radio. Sport Karate Radio. Growing the sport of sport karate. Tune in each week for episodes with special guests as we discuss sport karate. Sport karate.
what's up, everybody? Sport Karate Radio. Looking forward to this. We got season 3. As my camera's out of focus already, we're off to a great start here. There we go. All right, so season 3. We got great stuff coming your way in episode number 1 of season 3 here. Obviously, the big change, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, is we have switched to YouTube and Facebook Live video, so we're not just doing the audio anymore. However, you guys can check us out on iTunes and Google Play Music and all of the other podcasting apps that we're always on. We're still on there. We're just adding to the podcast a little bit and offering you guys some video. So, episode number 1 has not come together like I really planned it to, but in the clutch, we got our boy Jacob Wolfman with us today. And Jacob, how you doing, man?
Whoop, whoop. What up? What up? I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing good. Thanks for being on. Before we get started here, shout out to Corey. Corey, it's his 2-year anniversary today with his wife, Lisa. So congratulations, Corey. And
Happy anniversary, Corey.
Rich, unfortunately, is not going to be with us for season 3, unto anybody's surprise, really. That guy's everywhere. He's doing everything. He's got ProMax stuff. He's got his own school that he's running. He also works full-time, I believe. And he's got his tournament, Ozark Mountain National. So between all of that stuff, I mean, it was no surprise that we couldn't have him on here for season 3, but we want to wish him good luck with everything that he's doing. We might have him on here for season 3 as a special guest. He mentioned that he wants to be a special guest. So before we get started here, let's talk about some tournaments coming up. Jacob, you want to take the tournaments? Oh, shoot. Hold on a minute. I don't have any of your audio. We're still learning.
Let me know if you can hear me. Drop some thumbs up if you can hear me.
Oh, son of a gun. I don't know how to. All right, go for it. Try it again.
All right, let's try this again. Hopefully, you can hear me this time. So we got some big tournaments coming up in January and February that we're going to announce here. First up is AK Warrior Cup, January 17th, 18th, and 19th in Chicago, Illinois. One of the pride and joys of the sport, one of the most prestigious, classiest, nicest, most professionally well-run tournaments. If you are in the game, you don't want to miss this one. And you also don't want to miss the Compete Nationals at February 22nd, 23rd, 24th in Ontario, California. If for anything, there's an In-N-Out Burger next to it, so
Ooh.
that's, yeah. Don't miss that. And it's California. That helps too.
How can you go wrong with California?
Fire. It's pretty great. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding, right? All right, so story one, we are talking about the lack of protocols within NASCA, specifically competitor safety, and even more specifically, knockouts and what happens if something happens. People forget that sport karate is a contact sport. And within a contact sport, you have to assume that the worst things possible are going to happen. So people are punching and kicking each other in the head, and there are no rules within NASCA that say, this is what happens if you knock somebody out. For example, if somebody knocks another competitor out, is that person disqualified for using too much force? Or is the other person to blame because they weren't paying attention and they had their hands down? There is no disqualifications, and we're looking at the NASCA rule book right here, and there's nothing in the rule book that says anything about knockouts. Now, if we move to Glory, we can see that Glory, their website, first of all, or their rule book on their website is far more enjoyable to look at. And just searching for a knockout in their rule book, there's 15 different matches with the word knockout. So that just tells you right away that NASCA really doesn't think that knockouts are going to happen, or they're just ignoring it. Either way, it's a contact sport, and there is nothing in the NASCA rulebook, or NBL for that matter, I'm assuming, that say this is what happens if a knockout happens. Now, obviously, it's a worst case scenario, and fighters are trained to not use that full contact, but it does happen. Not recently have we seen somebody knocked out, but in the past, I would imagine that it's a pretty regularly thing. Do you know anything about like the 80s or the 90s fighting, if that was a regular thing with the fighting, Jacob?
I'm not like an expert on the fighting of 80s and 90s, but it definitely, back then the gear itself was way less, you didn't have to wear the headgear and the chest protector and all that stuff.
Right.
So there was a lot more beatings that happened back in the day, and the game was just a little bit different. But regardless, today there's still serious blows, particularly in the adult division and the higher at the black belt division. That's where I see some of the more dangerous fighting that happens. And I definitely think that the sport is in need of some sort of protocols when it comes to concussions. But one thing, as you were talking just now, I was thinking about the word knockout, and I think something that distinguishes sport karate from Bellator or Glory or the UFC, those sports actually kind of require knockouts. That's part of the game, is to knock out your opponent.
Right.
That's not part of the game in NASCA. You're supposed to get warnings and stuff. So I'm more concerned with just the idea of concussion protocol versus knockouts. It's a fine nuance. I think we're talking about the same thing, but I think it's important to distinguish the two concepts. It's super, as science and research has gone on, we know that it's increasingly more and more dangerous. There's more long-term effects to getting blows to the head. And, it is important that we are making sure that the safety of the players are, put at the forefront, if anything, for their safety. But second of all, I have a grander vision myself of where this sport could be. And a lot of that comes down to being more organized and having your act together. And if you have things like concussion protocols, you can do things like have regulating bodies where insurance is possible, where more money can come into the system because it's more well established, and it's not all just, every judge for themselves, as it kind of is these days.
I mean, if you talk to anybody at a tournament that has a rank within that tournament, whether they're a promoter or whether they're just, somebody of importance, I think that they would all say that competitor safety is like top two things that is on their list for that event. But I mean, if we look at the overall picture, NASCA, not just the tournament individually, there's nothing in there that says, all right, this is what we're doing to ensure the safety of all of our competitors. And it's sad to see, because it is a contact sport, and the ultimate thing that happens in a contact sport is people get hit. And what happens if you get too hard? We don't know. We don't know until something serious happens. And knowing how NASCA works, I think that the only way that something is going to be put in the rule book is when something bad does happen. And whether or not it's enforced after that, that's a whole nother thing. And, speaking of that, let's talk about how inefficient, but how irrelevant the rule book actually is. Because when we look at the rule book, there are tons of different pages of information that people don't even know about. I mean, even judges and other tournament officials that are there with a high rank within that tournament, they don't even know the rule book. So the rule book itself is just completely irrelevant because nobody pays attention to it.
Yeah, I do have to give a shout out to efforts like ProMac, for example, who they're trying to get the judges certified, regulated, so that there's a little bit of what's the word I'm looking for? Consistency and accountability amongst the judges. And that's super important. And right now, the reality of the sport is that there's very little money going into accountability. Paying the judges. Paying the judges allows them to be accountable for their actions, and having them pass some sort of standards and quality control it's just super important. And without that next step, you can't expect volunteer judges to all adhere to the rules.
Yeah, and Michael Felix, he's watching us right now. What's up, Michael? He brings up a good point. It just seems more professional. He says it seems more professional. I don't know what he means by that, but it doesn't seem professional at all, because who has a rule book and doesn't follow it in their own league? Like, what the hell is that all about?
I think he meant your show looks more professional, to be honest. This live stream looks pretty legit. You did a great job putting this together.
Well, thank you. I don't know what I'm doing, but we're getting there.
Just keep hitting buttons.
That's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm just, all right, this looks good. We're going to go with that. All right. So, and we're talking with Jacob Wolfman. You give a plug for your show. Are you still doing your show?
I haven't done that show regularly in quite a while. It's kind of taken a back seat, and my focus has been on growing Marshall Studios, which I launched publicly to everybody last February. So it's almost a year old. Right. And I've just been traveling everywhere, going to schools, tournaments, events, filming all kinds of media and stuff. So if there's a plug right now, that's my main plug. But I will give anybody that's listening right now a hint at a possible new podcast coming out. But I don't want to talk too much about it. I am in the works of putting a show together. So I'm just going to plop that seed out there and let it go for now. But
all right, we'll be on the lookout for that for sure. All right, so let's take a break here quick. When we come back, we are going to because Corey's not here, he's not going to take over our new segment, so it's going to be all about Jacob with our new segment. You guys are going to have to wait. Check out the ads quick, and when we come back, we got a new segment for you.
If you want to be the best, you got to compete against the best.
Welcome to my turf.
If you want to win here, you're going to have to go through me.
You have to go 100% at all times.
If you want to beat me, you got to train harder than me.
I guarantee you, I train harder than you.
You think you're better? Prove it.
Takes hard work.
It takes dedication.
Be motivated.
You think you're the king of this ring? I'm a lion. I'm the king of the jungle. No man can stop me.
This is Infinity National Championships.
All right, huge shout out to Century and Fighters Inc. Fighters Inc. Make sure you guys check them out at fighters-inc.com. They have all of the latest and greatest looking gear and apparel that you want for fighting and forms and just looking good outside of the ring as well. Make sure you guys check them out, fighters-inc.com. All right,
Sensei Secrets.
I forgot we had a little intro there for you. Next, we got Sensei Secrets. So Corey is our sensei. However, he's not with us today. So Jacob, you're the sensei. What tips do you have for anybody competing? Look at them skills. What information do you have for anybody that competes out there that is looking to take their form or their fighting to the next level?
All right. Well, I'm honored to do this section of Sensei Secrets. And my secret comes from the perspective of a photographer and a filmmaker. And my top tip for you today is to film yourself when you are training. Constantly film yourself for a couple of reasons. One, you can go back and you can study your footage. There's no better critiquer of your own abilities than yourself. And if you go and watch your footage over and over and over again, and you watch it in slow motion, you'll find all of your weaknesses and you'll be able to fix them a lot faster. Another reason why I like filming yourself is for the creative side of it. You know, we live in a social media world, and if you're constantly uploading your clips and your training, you're going to build a following. You're going to build a fan base. You're going to build a network so that maybe someday when you get to that high level and now you got thousands of followers behind you because you've been posting all of your content, you're going to be able to get sponsorships a lot easier. So my number one tip for you is film yourself.
Awesome stuff. All right, next up we have our second story, the evolution of sport karate, and a little old versus new. Now, this is very vague and very just kind of out there, but the differences between the old school and the new school. As far as the forms go, it's a completely different world. But as far as the fighting goes, I had a very hard time of coming up with how fighting has really changed, other than the fact that people back in the day when they used to fight, they were a little more aggressive and they used to hit a little bit harder from all the videos that I could see. That was really the difference. There really is no difference within the fighting aspect of it. Let's talk about that first. Jacob, what's your opinion on the fighting, old versus new? Is there any difference at all in that?
I think there actually is a lot of difference. And I think, especially if you're a high-level fighter, you realize that the game changes slightly every single year. Because what I've noticed, and this isn't something I've personally noticed, this is something I've noticed by having conversations with top fighters. What will happen is the top guys will develop a certain style, and the other fighters will have to kind of work a new style to defend or deflect that new approach. So sometimes you'll see kind of popularity trends in the point fighting world, just like you do in forms, where you'll see a lot more blitzing, or you'll see some more off-angle ducks, or you'll see some different jumping spin kicks that maybe weren't as popular a year or two ago, because the fighters that enter the sport kind of shifted around. I also think that the rules themselves have a little bit of a say in how the sport evolves. I don't know the rules and how they were back in the day, but I feel like there was less like front hand to the body kind of stuff going on, and you had to have just a lot more juice and power behind your strikes in order for the judges to count it.
One really powerful clean technique compared to a handful of just whatever techniques.
Just a fury of now today is also about the speed, man. You just got to get in there fast, and like it's like extreme tag. Back then it was kind of like knocking each other around a little bit more. So it hasn't changed drastically, but I do think there's a little difference.
I just learned this today. Do you know what TAG stands for?
Tag you're it. I used to know. What does it mean?
I think it's touch and go.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. I learned that recently.
And I thought about that. I'm like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I remember when I was growing up, when I was sparring, my instructor, when we were going through sparring and point fighting stuff, he'd always say, all right, you got to touch and you got to go. There's no power, no nothing. It was all about speed, just like he said. And as soon as I read that, I'm like, man, props to my instructor. He probably didn't even know that, and he was just doing it. He's so smart. Okay, so let's talk about the forms. Forms aspect has changed hugely, and I don't want to get into too big of details here because we're going to get into that later. But one of the big things that I see between the difference of creative and extreme forms back then to now is creativity. The creativity no longer exists now like it did back in the day when people had their own styles of their extreme forms where they put together these different combos and these different tricks. You don't see that today. And I think that's one of the biggest things that has changed throughout the years is the lack of creativity and personality within the extreme forms. What do you think is one of the big ones?
Well, first off, we got to put this in historical context, and the creative, and we're particularly talking just about NASCA here. The other open sport, other leagues kind of follow suit, but just for NASCA, the creative division started about 15 years ago or so, maybe 2003-ish. That's when that division was created in the first place. Before that, it was just the extreme and the creative all kind of competed together. And there has been, I guess, a maturity of the way people move, and it's just so fast now. And I don't like to use the word cookie cutter because it's got a negative connotation to it. But everybody does have a very similar fast vibe to themselves.
It's the trend right now, like you were saying before about the fighting.
Yeah, I mean, forms have trends like crazy, way more noticeable because it's an artistic movement. But I think I have a basic philosophy is don't hate the player, hate the game. And if I got to point fingers as to like the lack of creativity, I really point to the rules and the structure. And I think it's time for the sport to have a shakeup as far as how forms happen. I really call for NASCA, NBL, even ATA, any sport karate world that does creative forms to really come up with some fresh new ideas. We're martial artists at the end of the day, so you should be able to challenge competitors to do other things, doing things like mandatory standing kicks or, only one backflip allowed or, just confine the rules a little bit. I actually think that the rules are too open-ended, and there's this principle is in design actually, and it equates to forms, but when you don't have any constraints, you don't really know where to go. And so somebody kind of leads the path and then everybody follows suit.
Right.
If you have constraints and there's a very narrow scope of what is and isn't allowed, that actually allows for more creativity because now everybody knows they have a tighter field to work with. And it sounds backwards, but I think adding more rules would go a long ways.
So, okay, if that happened back in the day, I don't think we would have anything like what we have today, where you have those restrictions on that creative division when it first came out, and everybody had those different personalities and those different creative styles. If we had those parameters on something like that back then, I don't think we'd be where we're at today as far as the tricking level in sport karate is concerned, and the difficulty of the kicks and the weapons combinations and tricks, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think we'd be here where we're at today. I think this is pretty close to the top of what we're going to see with tricking in sport karate and extreme weapons and tricks with the weapons. I think we're pretty close to the top right now.
We're getting there. The one, as far as tricking goes, the full extent of tricking has never been seen in NASCA. You only see a very watered down version of it. And that largely is because of the risk factor. Once you get to that higher level tricking stuff, you're going to stumble more. And also, the judges don't know the difference. If somebody goes out there and does a box cutter and the next person does the shuriken cutter, like, most judges are going to be like, I don't know what's the difference.
It's the same thing.
But it's not.
Right, yeah.
Obviously it's not. But that's the point, is the judges themselves aren't even, they're martial arts judges. And so when you start adding all of these crazy flips and kicks and tricks that's not even their world, it's like, well, how do you judge that?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, moving on here. We're playing some, or not. We're not playing. We're looking at an image, past versus present. This is what I could come up with. Past versus present. New tricks was the past, where we'd see the new tricks come out by the latest people, the Taradas, the Does, the Emigs, and even like the Mech Chats especially. And now what we're seeing is new trick combos. We're not seeing any new tricks necessarily within sport karate. We're just seeing them put in different trick combos. And then the biggest thing within sparring that I saw, other than what I talked about before, is the sparring IQ. In the past, you had to have a high IQ in order to win your matches, and now it's speed. If you have speed and you have a little bit of that IQ, you're pretty good off from what I can see. And then the diversity and the complete domination of one division. Back in the day, I keep using Kim Do as a reference just because, I've been researching him here for the last month or so, and we have him on the show today. But Kim Do, he did breaking divisions, he did self-defense divisions, he did sparring. Granted, he got his butt whooped against Raymond Daniels, but that didn't stop him. He was still out there sparring, and he did all of those forms divisions that we know him for. And if we look at the Jackson Rudolphs and the Reed Presleys and the Mackenzie Emerys of today's world, they just dominate that one division, whether it's creative or whether it's extreme, not including the weapons and the non-weapons. They just kind of do the same form, but it's still kind of that same division there. They just dominate that one division, and they don't go back and forth to really, I don't want to say test their martial arts skills, but to see what else is out there. And then the last thing I got here is team and then personal achievement. And what I relate this to here is, do you follow football very closely, or are you just kind of like a Packer fan?
Oh, man, it's been rough this year. I'll say that.
All right, so Antonio Brown, he's kind of like a well-outspoken, unique individual, we'll say. And what everybody's been talking about him lately is what I can relate to this last image here, the personal achievement, is he doesn't care if the team wins or loses as long as he gets his certain amount of catches and he gets his certain amount of touchdowns and he gets his yards. And that's what I relate this to, the team versus personal achievement. Back in the day, it was all about the team, and now it's all about, okay, what can I do to win my division? And, I'm just going to go cheer on my friends, and that's pretty much it. What's your thoughts on a couple of these bullet points here, Jacob?
Yeah, well, let's take them in reverse order, because that's an interesting point that I haven't thought too much about it. But the team versus personal achievement, you do see that in football a lot more, whereas the players are getting paid insane amounts of money. It's all about fantasy football, racking up your points and racking up your stats. And you see that in the NBA too. It's like LeBron James is like, what team I don't care what team I'm on. I want what's best for me.
Right. Whatever is going to get him a championship. And even to bring it back to the Packers, which we're both diehard fans of, Aaron Rodgers, highest paid quarterback in the league. But that also means that they can't spend any money on wide receivers or a running back or really clutch personnel around him to help him out. Because they spent so much money on him, they got to kind of, all the rest of the players kind of have to take the bullet and get paid less.
Yeah, let's not talk about the Packers anymore. I'm so hurt over this season.
Yeah,
let's talk more about karate. But in karate, it's interesting right now because back in the day, it's definitely a lot more popular to have more homegrown teams where they all kind of trained together and they came from the same roots. I'm thinking of Team Charlie Lee. I'm thinking of Kick Team. And there's a lot of teams in Florida that were, they all kind of were from the same hood and trained together. And now, except for a few rare exceptions, like Infinity obviously comes to mind, where most of them all train in the same school, basically. It's really about just trying to get that uniform on your back so that you can just be recognized for your prestige of the uniform, which is, it's kind of a bummer because it does take away from the team aspect. And I know that teams do feel like they are part of a team, but the fact that they're all branched out from all over and they don't actually train together except at tournaments, it kind of loses a little bit to it. So I don't want to disrespect teams, but
I've never really
different fields.
I've never really understood teams other than a sponsorship. Like, okay, I get a uniform, people recognize me, and I get my way into a tournament. I've never understood a team because it's not like you go out to the team headquarters and you train with them for weeks and weeks and weeks unless, it is like an Infinity. And even in that case, there are still people on Infinity that don't even live in the state of Wisconsin.
There's a couple of them, but I think the benefit of teams is that although you don't train with your squad multiple times every single week, you are still part of a team and you do travel. Like if you're on AKA, you still will travel to Chicago on a regular basis. You still will go to winter camp. You still will be invited to opportunities that only AKA team members get to have. So there are benefits in that regard. If you're on Competitive Edge, you have immediate access to the coaches of that team. You have Jackson, Reed, Kenzie at your disposal. So you can be coached by them. So there are, I'm not going to disregard all benefits, but it's a little bit of a different mindset than formerly. There's just less, financial benefit to being on a team, less and less so. It's more status and social standing kind of thing.
Right. Okay, so let's hit on this one here too, the tricking evolution, because I can't think of anybody other than some of the high up trickers that are still doing this sport right now that could look at this and give me a little bit better opinion on this. The tricking evolution in sport karate. I have Ernie Reyes Jr. as kind of the first guy, and it was a toss up between him and Mike Chat. I couldn't put Mike Chat in there as number one just because Ernie Reyes was kind of the guy that started doing these jump kicks, and Mike Chat was the first guy to start doing the jump kicks with the aerials and the flips and stuff. But who would you have at the very first person in the evolution of tricking? Would that be Ernie Reyes? Junior, not senior.
I don't know. I don't know anything about Ernie Reyes actually in sport karate. I've never actually seen him compete. I've only seen him as a kid in movies and stuff, so I don't know. My first person, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I made a video about this. It's called A History of the Rise of Tricking, A History of Sport Karate. And the first person I put in that video was Gene Frenette. I think he kind of established, and this was before flipping, but he established a different way to break the mold of the traditional stoic martial arts, and he made it more theatrical and exciting. by having all these crazy kicks, and they are really timed to music in a really amazing, captivating way that today, if you watch those videos today, they're still incredible.
Right.
And then, another person that I and again, this goes back to the video I made because I've thought about this. I would give it to Kim Do.
Right.
little Kim Do in like 1991 or 1992 was throwing aerials. He was throwing back handsprings. He was doing acrobatics in his forms. Ho Sung Pak, same time period, he was an adult. He was doing wushu stuff. So I can't just say there's like one person that originated it. Everybody feeds off each other, but oh man, I could talk for hours about the history of tricking and how it's influenced the sport and how it's evolved since the early days.
Okay, so we have the person who kind of started it all, which, it is what it is. But then who really was the first person to take it to the next level? Would you say it was the Kim Do era, especially with Kim Do and Steve Tirada? Within sport karate, not talking about tricking outside of sport karate.
Yeah, well, tricking outside sport karate didn't really become relevant until like the late 90s, early 2000s. So it doesn't matter. Because before that, I would say Kim Do. Kim Do came before. Kim Do was in the game long before Steve Tirada stepped foot in the competition ring. So I'd say it's a toss-up between Kim Do, Carmichael Simon, John Valera, Mike Chat, kind of Jimmy Pham. Like the guys back then in the 94, 95 kind of time zone.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the guys I'd pick. Right. Like that really started moving the ball. Chris Tavera.
So after that, so the timeline that I have is Ernie Reyes Jr., Tirada and Do, and then Matt Emig, followed by Pinto Guthrie, and then I was trying to think of somebody to put who is relevant right now that is like taking the torch, and the only person that I could think of was Davies. Is there anybody, like I put Davies in there thinking, do I really put Davies is in there as the torch holder right now?
Danny Ekin.
You would put him solely in there. You wouldn't put anybody else in.
Well, I would put him in the conversation as one of the top guys. I mean, Alan Davis is definitely up there.
Davis, darn it, I keep saying his last name wrong, don't I?
I know. Well, you know what? It took me years. He was so shy about actually saying how to pronounce his name, so everybody calls him Davies. It's Davis, whatever. I would put Alan up there. I think Danny is at a higher level than Alan as far as complexity of tricking goes. Alan's just got like just pow. Like he's fun to watch, but
and he's making a name for himself outside of sport karate with just tricking too.
Yeah, I mean they both are. They're both. Danny is an adrenaline pro athlete now. Alan and Danny both, and Pinto and a number of other people went to Hooked Gathering in December and showed, represented the United States against all the other top trickers in the world. They battled against Japan. They did not even win, actually. You should see the trickers in Japan are like
next level.
Blow your mind. Next level, and they came out of nowhere. They've only been tricking for like 5 years, and they're already the best in the world.
That's some crazy dedication, man. Holy crap.
Yeah, there's something in the water over there. I don't know. They're crazy.
Okay, so no, you're good. Right, there's just too many people, like especially in that Tirada Do era where it first became popular. You're like, look at all of these people. Like 2 years after that first started to explode, it was just everywhere, like you said. Okay, so I got my top 5 influencers in sport karate, and number 1 I got Steve Tirada, number 2 Mike Chat, number 3 Kim Do, number 4 Kevin Thompson, and number 5 Raymond Daniels. And this was super hard to come up with just because there are so many big names out there in their own way have influenced sport karate. who would you put as your number one influencer for sport karate? Let's compare our top five. Top five. So would you put Terada in your top five? Not as number one, but just in your top five. So so oh wait, hold on. Nobody's even hearing you. Son of a gun. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. I'm laughing at myself here compared to everybody. Everybody's just thinking I'm going crazy.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're good now.
Okay. All right. So
okay, yeah, let's start this over here. All right. Okay, so I got Steve Terada as number one, Mike Chat number two, Kim Do 3, Kevin Thompson 4, and then Raymond Daniels 5. Let's compare. Okay. I have Steve Terada as number one, but you say he's in your top 15, maybe not your top 5.
All right, so here's the thing. You sprung this on me because I'm kind of filling in today, so I didn't know that I was supposed to write down my top 5. I don't have my top 5 at the top of my head because, man, that's really hard for me just to list off the top 5 most influential people in the sport. I don't know. I mean, where's Casey Marks? Like, why isn't she there? You know, I don't know. Like, there's
too many big names out there that have influenced it because it's gone so many different ways over the past years. Like even Raymond Daniels, I thought I would have put him higher, but after thinking about it, sparring hasn't changed that much in my eyes, and what has changed recently is because of Raymond Daniels, and I should have put Superfoot in there too, just because he changed the whole sparring scene. But I feel pretty good about this top 5 here with Terada number 1, Mike Chat number 2, Kim Do number 3, Thompson 4, and then Raymond Daniels 5. Somebody said Wayne Daglish. You remember him?
Wayne Daglish. Yes, I do.
That was the kid with the mullet, right?
Yeah, he had the crazy hair, and he moved that bow staff around like no other. I wouldn't put him in the top 5 though.
No.
Because he was a flash in the pan, and then he moved on to Hollywood.
I actually was looking up videos of him probably 2 months ago, and I had to ask somebody like, hey, I knew this kid was from Minneapolis, and I knew this kid trained under I think it was Casey, and then I was like, who's this kid with the mullet? I can't remember his name, and I remember seeing that guy at Diamonds, and blew my mind. But yeah, he like you said, he's a flash in the pan. I wouldn't put him in the top 5. Probably not even the top 15.
All right, so let me throw this back at you because you made your top 5 list. Defend, like, why is Steve Terada the most influential athlete in the sport karate game?
Because he was the guy that Steve Terada was the person who did the tricking to an extreme within sport karate and then brought it outside of sport karate as well and made that big. Now that's not a factor in his rankings heavily, but he did all of that stuff outside of sport karate, and it brought so much more eyes to sport karate because of that. This guy's throwing all these flashy kicks. Oh, what is that? Oh, that's karate. Oh, maybe I should kind of take a look at this. This might be kind of cool. And that hasn't happened since the 80s when you had Superfoot and you had all these martial artists and all these big movies. So that's why I have him at number 1. The only person that I don't really know about is Kevin Thompson. I don't know a whole lot about him, but what I do know from what people have said is that the dude is a legend. He did everything, and he did everything to the extreme. He was one of the top competitors. That's the only one that I don't feel comfortable on just because I don't know that much about him. But Steve Terada, number 1, Mike Chat, he with the XMA that he developed and that he faced and still does face for, I think Mike Chat is a solid number 2, maybe even a number 3. Kim Do, can't go wrong with Kim Do. He was the guy that brought all the new stuff. He was the guy that developed trends and started trends before anybody knew that it was going to be a trend. Can you think?
All right.
Can you think of anybody that you would have in your top 5 for sure, hands down? Just one person.
That totally changed the game. Casey Marks. She's got to be in my top 5.
How so?
Well, she's one of the most dominant competitors of all time. One of the most dominant female competitors of all time. She was a top fighter and a top open forms and top traditional forms. And there's very few people in the sport that held all 3 at the top level. I can't really think of anybody else in the past 30 years that was the top, like, number 1 in all of those things. So that's why she's, and she has such a storied, long career of dominating everything.
She has competed for so long.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to take a break here. No, we're not going to take a break. I was just joking. We're going to get to Kim Do. Now, Kim Do couldn't make it tonight, but I did an interview with him yesterday, so this is pretty cool. It's a little bit long, but this dude killed it. So here we go with Kim Do. Make sure you guys stay tuned. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/sportkarateradio, and on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube. We're not on Twitter, I don't think, unless somebody made something for us. I don't know. I don't do Twitter or Instagram. There you go. All right, here we go with Kim Do. All right, so we're coming in big with season 3 here. We got Kim Do, and if you don't know who Kim Do is, he's one of the pioneers of tricking within sport karate as far as creativity and different techniques and stuff that we have seen throughout the years really come from that era of Kim Do. Kim, thanks for being on the show, man. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks for having me, man.
So we're talking about the evolution of tricking and how it started and really the people that were involved with it that got it to where it is right now. And it really, in my opinion, comes down to Mike Chat was the first guy to really bring it into full circle to what we know it in sport karate radio, or in sport karate as we know it today. Mm-hmm. And then after that, bringing it from Mike Chat, it was kind of the Kim Do era and the Steve Tirada era where you guys were creating new tricks and bringing it into the public eye that we have never seen before. And the combos that you guys were doing, we never seen before. You guys were kind of the only people out there on that full scale that were bringing those new tricks in. And then we go into the newer generation, like the Matt Emig, followed by Jacob Pinto and Michael Guthrie. And then after that, it seems like everybody's doing the same stuff. And it's just different combos. There's no new tricks. There's no creativity like we saw from you specifically back in the day. What's your evolution of tricking? Where would you start with tricking in sport karate? Who was that first guy to bring it in?
For me, it was Ernie Reyes Jr., but that's because I came from West Coast.
Okay.
I saw him do 540s first, and then I think that's really what started it. Like 540 was all we had, so he was the first for me.
And then after Ernie Reyes, was there another influencer for you?
Then there was Stephen Ho, which he didn't. God, you can't even call it tricking back then, but for us, it was tricking. It was like flying side kicks and big old like super high jump spin hook kicks. Like that's all there were. You know what I mean? So. It was Ernie Jr. and then I saw Stephen Ho competing, and then that was the two first guys for me.
How familiar are you with the newer competitors competing out there?
The trickers, you mean, like the ones I see on Facebook?
Yeah. How are you still watching that stuff to see what people are doing?
I'm the old guy, so I get my information from McGuire and Facebook people.
Okay.
And so that new Japanese kid is pretty crazy. He did like B twist. I don't even know what it was. It was double snap you, right? Was that what it was? Hyper double snap you. It was something stupid. It was like a snap you swipe with an extra twist, whatever they call that thing.
Okay. Yeah, there's so many different weird and just ridiculous names out there. I can't even keep any of them straight. So,
but that new kid's crazy. I mean, he's like 12 or something like that, right?
Are you talking about Aiden?
No, his name is Shohei. He's from Japan or something like that.
Shohei. Yeah, I've never even heard of him.
Yeah, you should see him. He did He did snap you with an extra twist, which I don't even know what they call that, but it's pretty much a 540 with two B twists coming out of it, right? That's pretty much what it is.
Okay. So let me ask you this: the longevity and opportunities in sport karate, they really don't exist. We see competitors for a period of time and then they disappear. There are no opportunities unless you are like a Paul Mitchell and you have a team and you can make money by doing that. But there are no teams out there that really that we can see from the outside that are really making money. And that's kind of the one thing in my eyes that would keep competitors around is if they can make money throughout competition. But what have you seen within the martial arts community, within sport karate, I should say, about the longevity? Why do we see people compete and then they just disappear?
It's expensive. That's
Yeah.
the first part.
It's a pay-to-play sport.
Yeah, it's like hockey without the benefits of being a hockey pro. You know?
So what, even with those people being on sponsor teams and all that stuff being paid for majority wise, why do you think we're not seeing those people stick around?
I always complain about this, and I blame Century Martial Arts.
Uh-oh. They're our main sponsor, so careful here.
So there you go. I mean, when I blame them, I just say like in a sense of like how did Nike become Nike, right? Like they didn't become Nike by dumping no money into an athlete that would become the face of the industry. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so when I mean, this is not off subject, but like when you look at the trend of like what sport karate was in the 90s, I even say the 80s, going into now, it's transitioned from people that wanted to be individuals to people that just need to win because there's no money in it. And so all they're doing is doing what they need to do to win.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so because people are all doing what they need to do to win, they all look the same because it's a game of inches now. It's not a game of like, this is my style and this is how I'm going to win doing it. It doesn't exist anymore.
Right. And that's, you're talking about creativity wise, right?
Yeah. Or even I guess to go deeper than that, it's not even creativity. It's more like entertaining people, you know?
Right. You know, and when you look at a lot of the competitors, you're seeing a lot of them do the same forms. Speaking about forms specifically, you see them do a lot of the same forms with just one different trick combo right in the middle, and they just continue to win. And that's one of the things that that we see a lot of nowadays. And, you know, I think you're spot on with that for sure.
And so when I go back to Century, I'm like, you know, like, I don't know what their gross revenue is. It's got to be more than 5 million a year, let's just say. And I think to push one person who has charisma or has something that's like a sellable trait would cost you what? 30 grand, 40 grand maybe. And that's not even that much.
I mean, it depends on how big of a face you want them to be for you.
Right. Well, like let's think about XMA when Mike Chat was the face of XMA, right? And Century owned it, and they dumped. Let's say they dumped. I don't know the numbers. I'm just going to say they dumped like 200 grand into that whole marketing push, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it made him a lot of money. You know what I mean? And they sold a lot of XMA product. They sold a lot, right? And so why not repeat that? You know what I mean? Like, why not take a kid who's whatever, 18, 19. Let's just take Tyler Weaver, and just an example.
Okay.
And make him the face for however many years it's profitable to make him the face. But you still have to take a loss. You have to take like a 2-year loss, 3-year loss. But how much is that loss really if the kid is like the face of your not teenage, but young adult market, like, you know. Yeah. But maybe the issue is like there's no young adults in martial arts. Maybe that's the issue. But even if that's the case, then you have kids that are like from 8 to 12 that look up to these martial artists. You know what I mean? I mean, the funny thing is we don't even have martial artists to look up to like we did back in the 80s, right? Like
Right.
there's Chuck Norris, there's Bruce Lee, there's Jet Li, there's Jackie. There's like so many, but they don't exist. They don't exist anymore because all those guys.
They went
are
from
old.
the spotlight to now the spotlight is now stunt doubles in movies, and you don't even know who they are.
Yeah, yeah. And so I just think that, you know, I don't know, maybe it's just an old, like for Century, I get it, you know what I mean? Like maybe if it isn't broke, it doesn't need to be fixed. If it's a profitable business, it's cool.
Right.
But like if you want to make, if it, in a win-win situation, I think you can make a lot of money, man. I think you can make a lot of money selling apparel. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the one thing that martial artists sell is uniforms and sparring gear and all this stuff. We don't have shoes, but I mean that's up to them, right? Like why isn't there a martial arts shoe? If there's no shoe, like create the shoe. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
and
a
even
good
back
shoe.
in the day, there was never a shoe. It was just always that Adidas shoe that everybody wore, and that was pretty much it.
Right, right. And so like why isn't there a shoe? So like all you gotta do is like put a face to it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I mean, if I was smart enough long ago, I would have done it myself. But you know, I was a kid. I was like 19-year-old, 20 years old. Like, what do I know about marketing myself? And you know, I'm not Mike. Like that, Mike's a mastermind in that stuff, dude.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was like throw tricks and meet girls. That's
Yeah.
it. You know?
So, okay, what specifically strayed you away from competition? You personally?
Well, the thing is when I was sponsored, it wasn't even a sponsor. It was a person's pocket. Like they paid it out of their pocket for me to compete. Like pretty much this guy was my father. You know what I mean? Like he paid for everything. And so like I kind of felt bad always like asking him for money. You know what I mean? Like, hey, do you mind spending $800 for me to go to this tournament? You know what I mean?
The level of professionalism wasn't there.
Yeah, and then JPM. So I don't know if you know the story, but like I was gonna be on JPM after US Open '98, I think, and then I threw my black belt off of the stage because I was all mad, and so everyone was all like,
Why did you do that?
I just felt like I should have won and I lost, and I was just like, you know what, like I guess like the old school way of being like in control of your emotions or whatever was like the thing, but you know, like I was sick and tired of politics. So I was like,
right,
screw politics, man. Like this is bullshit. And so like what other way can I show to a mass amount of people that I'm frustrated than throwing my black belt from the stage to the crowd, you know?
I mean, you would never see that now. And
yeah.
But you know, things were different back then. You know, you could get away with hitting somebody a lot harder in fighting than you can now, and you can get away with different things in forms that you can't get away with now.
Yeah, and so then JPM never picked me up after that, and then I stayed on straight up, which was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. And then, yeah, man, and then I was just like having fun. That was it. And so I stopped because like I felt bad for being like, I don't know how you want to call it, spoiled, I guess you could say.
That's interesting. All right, man. Well, that's all we got time for. I want to thank you for coming on. This has been something that I've been looking forward to for a long time, and I know everybody watching and listening is super pumped to hear from you and just kind of check back in with you. It's been a while since you've touched the sport karate world with your presence.
Yeah, like every time compete nationals comes around, I'm like, hey, I could go and compete. It's close and it's cheap, and then I like get lazy to train.
The sport karate world summed up right there.
Yeah.
All right, coming up next, we got some stuff from Corey, and we got some guest callers. So make sure.
Yeah. It's time to play the game that everybody loves. It's a game.
Unmute myself here. That
was time to sing along. Name that person. Who could it be? Name that person. Say it with some glee. Jackson, Jeff, Mike, Richard, Dean, Leon, Mike, Chatter, Bud. Who could it be? Name that person. Say it with some glee.
All right, here we go. We got a new segment called Name That Person. Oh, I guess it's not a new segment. It's a new segment for our video watchers. But all right, Jacob, since you are the co-host of today's show, you are going to be playing Name That Person with me today.
All right, let's do it.
All right, so
how do we do this?
I got 3 questions, and you can answer after each question one person who you think these questions are being referred to as. So the first question is Amazon.com best-selling author. Now, this is a martial artist that is well known. It's pretty hard to base off of the first guess.
Do I get to ask any questions, or I just got to guess somebody's name?
I'll just guess somebody's name. Who do you know that's
Brandon Beliso?
No.
Brandon Beliso.
No. Next question. Raised $27,000, over $27,000 in a couple of weeks to create a revolutionary martial arts uniform.
Mike Chat.
Nope. Last question. You're getting close, though. Moved to Japan after high school, not knowing the language, no friends, no friends in the area, and no family.
Oh my gosh, what's his name? Jesse Ernkamp.
Hey!
Yeah! All right. Woo! That was a
good one. I'm impressed that you know that. Right on. I don't think Rich and Corey in all of season 2 got one person right. I have to give them like 30,000 different questions. So nice work.
I saw the episodes where he's traveled back to Okinawa, so I watched a little bit of Karate Nerd.
He's got his seminar coming up too. I think it's in Okinawa. That's why he's back there.
Cool.
All right, taking another quick break. When we come back, we are going to save the best for last. We got some old school versus new school matchups that we're going to go through. But until then, enjoy these wonderful ads.
If you want to be the best, you got to compete against the best.
Welcome to my turf.
If you want to win here, you're going to have to go through me.
You have to go 100% at all times.
If you want to beat me, you got to train harder than me.
I guarantee you, I train harder than you.
You think you're better? Prove it.
It takes hard work.
It takes dedication.
Be motivated.
You think you're the king of this ring? I'm a lion. I'm the king of the jungle. No man can stop me.
This is Infinity National Championships.
All right, check out our friends at fighters-inc.com. If you want to look the best inside and outside of the ring, fighters-inc.com is the place to shop. They got all of the latest and greatest sparring gear, uniforms, and apparel that you can wear outside of the ring as well as inside. Check them out, fighters-inc.com. All right, we got our best for last. And that's going to wrap it up after we do this. Old versus new. So we got 3 matchups here. We got Superfoot Wallace against Raymond Daniels. We got Kim Do versus Alan Davies. Steve Tirada versus Matt Emig. So I got my picks in. Take a minute to think of who you would pick. And when we do this, there's really no criteria that we can base this off of other than who we think would win today. There is no nice promotional text there, Mike. There is no other criteria that we can base this off of other than who we would think today this person would win. So, Jacob, who do you got? Superfoot Wallace or Raymond the Real Deal Daniels?
These are some good matchups. I am going to have to lean towards Raymond Daniels. Bill Superfoot Wallace, he's called Superfoot because he had that crazy one leg.
Right.
But he was kind of like that was his one thing. I mean, he's really good at it, but I think Raymond Daniels is just
a more well-rounded fighter.
Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you. I got Raymond Daniels there, Real Deal. The dude can do it all, and what he does phenomenally. I think he would give Superfoot a very good run for his money. I don't think it would be very close if they were to fight today. Superfoot in his prime against Raymond Daniels in his prime, which is arguably right now. But we haven't seen him spar in how long? It's been probably a year, right?
Yeah, it's been a minute. I don't remember the last time I've seen him fight.
All right, we got Kim Do versus Alan Davis. Not Davies, Davis. I got my pick locked in. Who do you have winning a sport karate tournament, let's say, between Kim Do and Alan Davies, both in their prime? They were to compete against each other today. Who do you got?
This is hard. So if they're competing in the year 2019, I'm giving it to Alan. However, if they were both competing in the year, 2000, I'd give it to Kim Do. I think people have a different set of expectations for how forms should look today than they did back in the day. So I'm giving it to Alan only because you said if they were both competing at their prime in today's world.
I got Kim Do. I think that his creativity and his uniqueness within his form, it would just be that one small, minute factor that would put him over the top over Alan. Now, the reason why I have Kim Do and Alan Davies going against each other here is because I see a lot of Kim Do's creativity in Alan Davies, whether it's the music selection or just kind of the unique style of the way that he does his techniques and his form. So I think that those two are very close. I think that if Alan stuck with competition as hardcore as he did the last couple of years, that he could be, one of those Kim Do's of our sport today. But I think he's got other interests. I don't think that I don't think that he's going to become the Kim Do of today or of back in the day.
Yeah, I don't know if it's fair to call. I don't know. I think Alan is going to be the Alan of the sport. 10 years from now, people are going to go oh man, you remind me of Alan Davis. They're going to be saying things like that. So Alan's already kind of cemented himself and his name is going to be known for a long time, whether or not this is his last year. But I don't want to discredit Kim Do either. So that's super hard to pick one.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw my pick. I accidentally picked it. Steve Tirada versus Matt Emig.
I missed it. I honestly didn't see it. So, and this is this is tricking, or is this a forms division?
This is forms. This is forms division. Now, Steve never did weapons, really. He always did open hand.
No, you're right.
Oh, okay.
He did. Well, he did commas, but
it wasn't really anything.
We're doing open forms.
Open forms. Steve Tirada in his prime. Matt Emig in his prime.
Oh man, you make this hard. There's so many variables here. I can't recall if Matt was ever in the adult division when Steve was still in the competing as an adult, and if they actually did compete against each other.
I don't think that they did, and if they did, Matt Emig wasn't, looked at like he was.
Matt Emig was a monster as a junior. It was 2008. He busted his knee and he was out of the game. But I think Steve Tirada. All right. I just gotta pick a choice. I hate this, man. I hate this game.
So
I
Steve
hate this
Terada
game.
and Matt Emig are going against each other because I think that both of their tricking abilities are the cleanest of their generation of competing. Matt Emig's tricks were super clean, and Steve Terada was super clean. Whatever tricks he did, not the difficulty of the tricks, but the cleanness of what they both did. I think it's very comparable. That's why these guys are going against each other.
Yeah, do I have to pick? I really think it's a clash, and it's really going to come down. I think Steve can win one week, and I think Matt can win the next tournament. I can't pick one.
That's a hard one. I got Steve Terada. I don't even know why. It's the same thing with Kim Do and Alan Davies. There's like that one minute factor. And I guess when I was thinking of Steve Terada, when you think of Steve Terada, you think of his forms. And when you think of Matt Emig, you're thinking about the nunchucks. And you really can't compare the nunchuck form to an open hand form fairly.
But Matt Emig's open forms were fire. Like he's known for chucks because no one else could ever do chucks like him, but his open form is still the highest level. He's still so good. I don't know.
Yeah. And the other thing too that you can argue is that Matt Emig, he's still in sport karate somewhat because he had his Team Emig, and he had, the top competitors of, at least the past 2 years. You got, who was on his team? Kenzie, Weaver, Etkin, and all those guys have, that little bit of Matt Emig touch in their forms that you can still see today. I think Danny reminds me a lot of Matt Emig in the way that he does his tricking combos, and the way that he enters his form.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Matt has taken a lot of those competitors under his wing and kind of showed him the ways, and you can definitely see his influence carry out through the sport. Anybody that does chucks looks after Matt. Before Matt Emig came along with chucks, chucks, nobody moved chucks like that,
right.
Period. There's a totally different style of using the weapon. So
setting that trend.
He's made a huge impact on the sport. But we've already talked about Steve's contributions earlier in the show as well.
Right. Well, this went about, I was talking to Jacob during the break, during one of the ads there, and this went about 45 minutes longer than what I planned. So I don't know what this is going to entail for our future episodes. And don't pay attention to any of the little information boxes at the bottom, because none of those are going to be right, since I plan this to be a half-hour show. But before we finish here, I just want to say thank you to Jacob for being on the show. It was kind of a last-minute thing. Appreciate you coming on. I want to say congratulations to Corey and his wife Lisa on their second-year wedding anniversary. And I want to say thanks to Rich for helping us out with season 1 and season 2. He's such a big influence in sport karate, and he's trying so hard to make this such a better sport. So he's doing such a great job, and unfortunately the podcast isn't something that he can be a part of for season 3, but we'll get him on here hopefully for season 3 as a special guest just to hear back from him. So Jacob, thanks for being on, man. Appreciate it.
You are super welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Check out, what's your website? marshallstudios.com, right?
That's right.
marshallstudios.com. That's Jacob's go-to business. Any pictures, videos, stuff like that, he's your guy. Make sure you guys check us out at sportkarateradio.com, facebook.com/sportkarateradio, and on youtube.com/sportkarateradio, as well as all the podcasting apps. Next show, 2 weeks. Hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll catch you guys later. Cool.
Nice work.
Rock
I was
on.
always really worried to talk during commercials and stuff because I didn't know if I was muted.
Yeah, I'm positive that I didn't have you in any. I don't know how to add your audio without adding your video in anything, so I didn't add your video in any of the ads, and I made sure that I muted myself. So
okay.
Yeah, we're all good.
Cool,
man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, that was good stuff. I was a little nervous, talk about some of those things, but once the show happened, I was like, I got opinions. Here they come. Works out fine.
Right on. We had a lot of people watching, which I was quite surprised on. I was only expecting like 3 people.
Yeah, cool.
Right on. All right. Well, I will catch you next time.
Sounds good.
Talk to you later, man.
Yes, sir. See you later.
Peace.